Welcome back to school, teachers. This is a Common Core State Standard teaching tip from Sherry Beck. Before we get started, I'll tell you a little about myself. I have been in education for over 20 years. When I first started, I taught high school math for 7 years, and then I decided to go back to graduate school. After getting my Master's of Science in Mathematics, I began teaching at the community college level. I have been a professor of mathematics at Navarro College for the past 13 years. During this time, I work quite a bit with teachers. I teach the math courses for any teacher who wants to receive certification from early childhood through 8th grade, and I also work in training teachers over the summer so that they can teach mathematics in their classroom. My teaching tip for you today is titled Track to Target. This is going to focus on using tracking sheets that are organized by objective so that the teacher can target the weaker objectives during classroom warm-ups before a lesson or for a quick brain teaser at the end of a lesson. The teacher can track each student on a spreadsheet arranged by objective, and students can assist with the tracking by creating their own bar graph of progress with bars for each objective. Students can color in a section of a bar when they answer a question correctly for the particular objective. Now, I want to show you an example of some tracking sheets that I have used in the past. I am showing you one in particular for grade 4, where I have taken the Common Core State Standards and I've listed them simply by domains and clusters. This particular type of tracking sheet, you can have one individual sheet for each student, and then you can list different assessments or grading periods across the top so that you can mark the boxes for mastery as you see fit. And what I typically like to do when I do a student tracking such as this is, for example, if I know I have some scores from the end of the previous year, I like to look at those first before my students enter my particular classroom, and I like to just take a look, what did they master on that previous test, as well as, what were their weaknesses, so that I can target right from the beginning. And then as I go through, I may have some benchmark assessments or just in general things that I've taught where I like to keep track. Now, another type of tracking sheet that I like to use is one where I break it down into the actual standards. So you still have your domains and your clusters, but it's a little bit more specific with the standards. And again, you can track by student, and then you can list those particular assessments. And sometimes this just helps you to develop a plan of action of what you can do to actually target those weaknesses. And in order to show you some ideas for targeting those weaknesses, I want to take you to one of my favorite sites that I like to use in teacher training. Now, I'm going to take you from the very beginning. I've opened a browser in Google Chrome, and I'm simply going to type in the letters NLVM. That stands for the National Library of Virtual Manipulatives. And if you'll click on that, you will be taken to this particular website, which was developed by Utah State University. And it is free to access, and as you can see, it comes in multiple languages. So there's English, Spanish, French. And it's also broken down by different domains of topics across the left and grade levels across the top. And so we're specifically I was looking at the tracking sheet for 4th grade. So I'm going to specifically focus on what could I do if I have a student that is weak in an area in 4th grade. So let me go back to my tracking sheet for a minute. And let's say that, I've got student John Smith, and we have been looking at numbers and operations in base 10. Or, I looked at across the board and say that this particular domain was a weakness, and in specifically the cluster of multi-digit whole numbers. And I wanted to either try to set up some centers where I could help those weaker students and have them focus, or I just wanted to do some type of warm-up activity at the beginning. Well, using this particular website makes it very easy. So I'm going to enter under grades 3 through 5, and I'm going to look at the strand of numbers and operations. And with the particular thing that I mentioned with multi-digit numbers, let's say in particular I want to focus on subtraction that day, then we can look at a particular manipulative called base blocks subtraction. Now you will have to have Java that is loaded on your computer in order to run this, but Java is also a free download, and I'm going to accept the risk to run it. It's definitely worth the risk with the actual manipulative that you get to use. And you'll show it gives you a very visual model. It's a virtual manipulative, and in this particular case I'm solving the problem of 74 minus 59. Now, as we know, and the student hopefully will learn, we cannot take 9 away from 4. And so we talk about regrouping things, and so if I take a group of 10s and I drag it over here, I'm actually exchanging that into 10 ones. A group of 10 is worth 10 ones, which what that does is it gives me 14 total ones. And notice they're showing the student over here as well. They've got 14 total ones, and we need to take away 9. With this particular manipulative, the way that it works is you make your 0 pairs, and when you do, they disappear. Now, don't worry, because if you're not sure how to work a particular manipulative, if you look over here in the top right-hand corner, they give you clear instructions of how it is to be worked, how you cancel them out, how you do the exchanging, etc. So if you're not sure, they give you that, and then they also give you some different ideas sometimes with activities that you can do or create your own problem. So they've got those instructions there. All right, so I'm going to continue making my 0 pairs here, showing that I'm taking away the 9 from the 14 that I started with. And notice when I get all 9 taken away, I am simply left with 5 ones. And they show me visually over here with the problem. All right, so next I've got 5 that I need to take away from, or 5 groups of 10 that I need to take away from the 6 that are left. And again, in the same manner, if I make my 0 pairs, that shows me taking away the 5 groups of 10, which leaves me with 1. And of course now I have solved the problem, and I can move on to my next problem. Or, if you want to create you've got a sheet of problems you want the students to work, then you can have them create their own problem and drag the manipulatives in order to work that particular problem. Okay, so let's go back to our spreadsheet for a minute, and I want to show you just a few more examples. So let's say, again, I was tracking. Let me go to my more detailed one, and I'm looking at fractions in particular, and I noticed that a lot of my students are having trouble with this particular standard of equivalent fractions with visual models, and I want to try to target that particular Common Core standard in my classroom, again, either with a warm-up activity or some type of center time, or just work that you want to do when a student finishes early. Again, I'm going to go back to my National Library of Virtual Manipulatives, and this time, again, I'm in numbers and operations, and since we're looking at 4th grade, I'll go in here, and I want to focus on, it was equivalent fractions. So as I scroll down, you'll notice there is a particular manipulative that deals with relationships between equivalent fractions. So when we look at this, in this particular activity, we are trying to find a new name for this fraction by using the arrow buttons to set the number of pieces, and then we're going to enter the new name. Now, you'll notice as I click, it's going to start dividing the original picture into new pieces. And I've got to keep dividing until what's already colored fits perfectly into the pieces that I have. I can't have just little sections that are laying over. So I'm going to keep dividing until I can get a perfect fit. And then once I get that perfect fit, then that shows me how many other pieces, and then I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the 14 pieces are shaded just like the original 4 out of 7. And so this gives them another idea, and of course I can check it. Automatic feedback, yes, I'm correct. It's another name. Can you find one more? Now let's look and see what happens. Say I miscounted and I thought it was 7 out of 14. When I go check, it says you have a correct total number of pieces, but you need to select a different numerator. And so that would give, again, automatic feedback. Now let's look and keep going. Let's go with another one with more pieces. So again, notice I just keep increasing until I get a perfect fit. So now it appears that I have 21 total pieces. And if I count what's shaded, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there are 12 different pieces that are shaded there. And it says, yes, of course, that I am correct. So once again, this teaching tip was just the idea of trying to target the weaknesses of your students, what I call track to target, so that you can actually use these particular things during warm-ups and you can hit the bullseye at the end of the year when your students actually, take their particular test or whatever. If you're interested in seeing others of my resources, you can find my teacher store under my name, Sherry Beck, Sharibeck. I appreciate your time. Thank you.